welcome back to Live from the Lakehouse. We are here still in Moscone, and we hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. I know I am. We've been speaking to some wonderful guests. I know there's been some fantastic talks going on. I'm here with Kobie.
Hi.
But let's be honest, I really want to talk about our last guest that we just had, Jonathan Franco on.
Oh, Jonathan.
What an amazing guest he was. And
Jonathan's a prince. It's wonderful to have a chance to talk with him. He's so good at what he does, and he's like really got a real strong sense, not only of the science, not only of being able to speak both at the level of like this is what's going on inside the academic research, but also at the level of having a real sense of the pragmatic, practical realities of things. And then I love what he had to say about trust.
Absolutely, yes.
What do you think about the...
I really respect someone who kind of holds himself back from being super, super excited and saying, this is a speculation of what's going to go on, being able to say, no, I really like trust. Trust is so important. And I think Robin's talk has just finished. If I know Robin, she's probably spoken a lot about governance and security. She's going to be on with us later, so we can ask her more questions about it. But yeah, this fundamental of trust. And yeah, I hear so few people say it in that kind of a raw, kind of open way. It's like, yeah, you can talk about governance, but there's trust underneath it, and that's such a critical component.
Yeah, absolutely. You really, it's funny almost to think about like how much business in general, whatever the product, whatever's going on, actually depends on relationships, and those have to be built on trust. There has to be some point at which we are trusting what we as customers get from other people and what we provide to our customers. We have to help them build trust with us. So it's wonderful to have that be something that he was ready to be so frank about.
And then also swords. That was
swords. Indeed, there were swords.
Yeah, so we've got a real dichotomy going on here, haven't we? But no, I really appreciated it. He also mentioned about having fun as well, and for me, that's a very important part of my job and making sure that I have fun in what I'm doing. And it turns out that everyone at home has also been having a lot of fun too. People have been sending in their pictures of watch parties, and I think we've got a few images that we can share with you now. So maybe we should go to the first one, and let's have a look at Costa Rica.
Pura vida.
Yes. All right, so Costa Rica, thank you so much for sending in this picture of your watch party.
So
obviously watching the keynote of Ari and Pearl yesterday, getting all hyped up and ready for the day. I guess the time difference isn't too bad, so what would this be?
I think they're
like
about the same time as the East Coast.
Oh, okay then, yeah, so late morning, lovely start to the day, getting to see all those announcements, maybe grabbing some lunch. Sounds absolutely amazing.
Fantastic. Let's see who's next on our thing there. I see the next team we have a photo shot from is from Korea. Is that office? That's the Databricks office in Seoul. Is it in Seoul or is it outside?
I imagine it's in Seoul, but yes. Now, speaking of time differences, now this Korea team, I think actually we have replays for the APJ time zone to make it a little bit more, a little less painful,
yeah.
shall we say.
That photo does have sunlight out there, so.
It does, yes. You are the expert. Well done, Kobie. Yes, okay then. Yeah, lots of people are really excited, and we're glad that they were able to watch this at a sensible time and not silly o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, who else do we have?
All right, the next team up. Oh, this is for you, child.
London, obviously, where I am from, where my funny accent is from. They actually rented out a cinema, an Odeon cinema, so that they could have it on the very, very big screen, get those nice, comfy seats, and we can see everyone is fully engaged with the keynote. Actually, no one's posing for this photo, so I imagine it's quite a candid one. But what a great way to watch it, right?
No doubt, absolutely. I was just sitting here thinking about, getting that same kind of sense of like the full sense of the crowd and the excitement that way.
Yes.
Something they were able to replicate by going straight to the theater with it. I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice to hear everyone's like reactions in the moment and hearing the cheering and the gasps and the those reactions to people. So yeah, I think that one was a big success. It wouldn't surprise me if we see another one happening again next year.
All right, my question for you now.
Yes, go on. Yes.
All right. You're in the theater. You're watching a film, which means none of the actors, nor directors, producers are in the room with you. Do you applaud with the rest of them?
Oh, I see. So you're watching people applaud. Do you also then applaud with the applause?
Yes.
Oh, now this is a great question that I don't really know the answer to. I mean, I've seen the announcements. I think I would applaud anyway. You know what? I'm going to let you all in on a secret back at home. Kobie and I were stood just outside our studio watching the keynote, just the two of us together, and we were still cheering at things.
Really
There
true.
are a lot of things we're either like clapping about, being like, yes, I'm so glad that this is out, or yes, we need to see this happening already. So, you know what?
exciting.
I think people would have applauded.
I think you're probably right. I think I would have been right there with them too, because some of these announcements were just top of the mind. I just couldn't have expected more or better. This was such a beautiful thing to have seen happen, and the things that the company is doing, some of these things, like all of these things are reveals and others to the rest of us, to us as employees. A lot of these things, of course, we naturally don't know until they're announced, and so this is a fantastic story.
And can I tell you a bit about this cinema?
Please do.
So this was, I think, the Odeon Cinema in Covent Garden. This is normally where they do a lot of like film premieres and where they do a lot of releases for films.
Oh!
So I think it's very fitting. Like, this isn't just any old cinema. This is where they do a lot of big movie releases.
Wow.
And what a place to do feature releases is to do somewhere with as much history and as much kind of cultural significance, doing it somewhere like this. So
That's
great
fantastic.
choice, team. Really appreciate being able to look at this. Should we carry on going around the world? Who
Yes,
else can we have a look
let's
at?
see who we have next.
Michigan.
Michigan.
Hello, Michigan. Oh, we can see here everyone else is watching intently, paying a lot of attention here.
Brilliant, and it's also lunchtime there. Again, the time zone, three hours different, so that makes sense. What a wonderful thing. All right, Michigan team. That's I also like the partition in the back of this office here. Kind of tells you that room is actually much larger, and they've got the rolling desks. So this looks like a flexible space, like a classroom kind of situation that can be just that same thing. So they actually did set it up. They actually went about finding a special spot so that everybody could be together. That's one of the keys, right? Being able to bring everybody in the same place. So I love they made a rush party and actually put some effort into it. That's wonderful. Let's see who's next. Mumbai.
Oh,
Brilliant.
goodness. So again, this is daylight outside. I'm learning here. So I imagine this was the replay that went on, because my goodness, I think that's like a 12.5-hour time difference.
Yeah.
Whoa, really challenging.
Night is day and day is night.
I must say, I have seen a few people around who have said that they have flown in from India, and my goodness, do they look tired. I thought I was struggling with an 8-hour time difference, but honestly, hats off to them. They've done a fantastic job at coming here. I think I've seen a lot of people in training as well, being able to stay awake for really long kind of
Staying awake
days.
during a training session where you get to sit and be attentive. Oh.
Yeah,
Again,
but let's
like
have a
you
look
said.
at this picture. So yeah, this is a big group of people.
Yeah, indeed. That team is out there, and you're looking outside, seeing the good weather. I generally have heard that it's pretty warm, like pretty much any time of year, and so I hope that they have some good AC going in their office as well, and
Keep people nice and awake. No snoozing in the back.
yeah, that's got to be a key. Let's go to the next one.
Oh.
Hands down, favorite. That's fabulous. Look at that.
So
the four-legged crew member on the team. Oh my goodness, that's fantastic.
So I have it on good authority that this is Bailey. Bailey is obviously very clever and herself has her background on her own laptop, because she's a very clever girl. She's bestest girl. Obviously wearing a Databricks t-shirt as well. We can even see ourselves in the monitor at the back as well. This is like slightly
that
live
must
from
be
the
this morning, yeah.
Lakehouse Inception, but here we go. And then obviously probably paying more attention to Ali's keynote, which to be honest, I can't blame her for.
Yeah. That's the move. He's the one, so let's do that.
Very cute.
Oh, how wonderful. Bailey, all right. And Singapore.
I mean, slightly less cute, but I'm sure they're an attractive group of people. They're just not as cute as Bailey. But we've got some decorations going on here as well. So, hats off.
They made a real party of it.
Yeah.
Similar story, watch party, APJ watch party. Singapore office looks lovely. I can't wait to visit. That'd be fantastic.
I can see a bit of food going on here as well. If I know Singapore, that's probably absolutely delicious.
Yeah, indeed. Gotta have that. That's fantastic.
All right, and on the big screens. Okay, then.
Who else is there?
And next we have Belgrade.
All right. So, Serbia, fantastic. That's actually this is pretty significant offices, isn't it? They have some teams there. I did actually meet a couple of people from the Belgrade office at some point.
Yeah, we've got a team out there, yeah. So looks like they're having a great time there, all pumped and ready to go. I think that's
so glad they gave us a photo. That's fantastic. Look at that. I love them seeing them out there. Got the big screen up there.
Yeah. Oh, and it's when they're doing the warm-up, when Ari and Burl are doing the warm-up. So they've technically not even watched the keynote yet. So moment in time, pre-keynote, Those were the days. The heady days.
All
1.5 days.
All 25, 36 hours ago.
Oh, before we knew about Unity catalog being open source.
Yes. Distant memory now. Fantastic. And I think we have one last team that has bonus points for having made a video. Why don't we go ahead and let that roll?
And we are back. Thank you, Amsterdam, for sending that in. I really appreciated watching that. And so back with us, we have Ari again, who you would have recognized from yesterday. Hello again, Ari. How are you?
Welcome back.
Wonderful. So good to be back. So good. I've enjoyed watching you. You are on fire, and the guests have been tremendous.
So tell us yesterday.
Keep going.
Oh, okay
No
then.
problem.
Well, he said that he's had a great time, so trust me, just because his microphone was turned off, he was definitely having a great time. But you had some fantastic guests in yesterday. Who were your highlights?
Sure. Well, yeah, now that my mic is on, just again wanted to appreciate everyone, 140 countries. We love seeing you. So if you are tuning in just today, I was co-host with Pearl Uberu yesterday, and we had about 22 different guests on. Really everything from customers. I want to shout out, thank you to all of our customers. The community, this is really a community event. Our partners, and Bricksters themselves. So, customers, one of my favorite segments is just over there, Industry Solutions Hub. We went out into the actual Expo Hall and went to 7 of our main industries. Some of our customers were there, MasterCard, Brent Raley with Chevron Phillips, Mercy Hospital, the Texas Rangers we came back in, but every single industry with solution accelerators talking about that. And then in terms of community, we had some of our leaders here, but we also, prior to the show, we had a hackathon that you are a part of, Kobie.
Yeah.
We had Gen AI meetup. When I say meetup, it's 1,500 people.
1,500 people meetup.
I think this is stretching the term meetup at this point. I'm sorry. We have to put an upper limit on this, because a meetup to me is a few pizzas, a room kind of this size, and someone just kind of stands up and talks about a project that they're working on. That felt like a big event. Yeah.
That is
Mosaic
a
Expo.
fair judgment. I think you've called it. I think the meetup has definitely been to the point where it's outgrown its original terminology, and it needs to be recast in some new light. But it was really wonderful to have the Mosaic team come out. We had folks from the research side, from the engineering side, really sort of dig into and talk about a lot of things. We had some industry people who came and joined with in that Mosaic X meetup, and got to speak about things in the path of where AI is going in terms of both the theoretical side as well as some of the pragmatic things. One of my favorite people in that space, just to watch, and who knows the ML ops space really well, is the head of Claypot AI. That is.
Yeah, and also partners and Bricksters. So we are going to have more partners on coming soon. But yesterday, 5Tran, DBT Labs, Data IQ. 3 partners that came onto the segment, and then Bricksters, people who are involved behind the scenes, product managers. We had Matei on, one of our co-founders, which was wonderful.
I got to say how partner focused you are to think of like, I got to talk about the partners, and I would talk about it, but not mention Matei until the end.
And he did wonderful in the keynote. I don't know, people saw legit, he put on GitHub and he open sourced Unity catalog. It was like a moment in history. He hit the commit button, and if you want to see what that view looked like from behind the scenes, I was in the green room, got a filming of that going live, and historic moment, so you could check out on my LinkedIn, or X they call it now, put the video up.
Yeah, so you've been spending a lot of time with customers as well, haven't you?
Yeah, traveling around the world. I love learning, seeing what their strengths are, what their challenges are, their successes were. One of the other customers we had on was the Texas Rangers, which was wonderful.
So Ari has been quite coy at the moment. He has a wonderful sporting data background. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, so I've been honored to do work for many decades in something I'm very passionate about, which is sports. And I was one of the first of a handful of what you can now call a data scientist or an analyst, starting with the Los Angeles Dodgers, Fred Clear, the GM, when I was just a wee child at Caltech as a teenager, working with all these major league players, trying to use data to see what are the strengths, weaknesses, and habits of the players during the game or before you trade for them. And then every couple of years I had to keep reinventing myself, and long story short, I guess one claim to fame was creating and leading the Chicago Cubs analytics department, as well as, in addition to using data and analytics, which really speaks well to Databricks, since it's all about structured, unstructured data, but becoming a major league scout. So I've helped, from the humanistic standpoint, look at what talents might forecast into the future, and where does data augment all of that?
Yeah, so I'm going to stop you because I'm not much of a sports person, so we're going to have to break some of these things down. So, were there anything surprising, especially when you first started doing that, to be like, oh, hang on a minute, these two things are correlated. This is quite surprising. Like, do you have any stories like that? Well,
two stories, and one which actually the Rangers are now using Mosaic now for the LLMs. And one of the correlations is you have scouts and you have analytics, and sometimes they combine each other. So for example, a scout, it's a perfect case for analytics and LLM, they could use certain keywords or certain sentiment that is very predictive of how someone who's young might do in future years. And at the same time, analytics could say, for example, how consistent is their swing motion.
Right,
and then,
okay.
So what's fascinating about all of this, and where Databricks can also help, or Gen AI and AI, is like, what are the different multimodal signals from structured, unstructured data, and what is most predictive? Not just past looking, which is where business intelligence data warehouses is great, but also predictive forward looking. And that, sports is one great example, since it's about human behavior. And for other industries, when you're talking about marketing, that's also human behavior. When you're hungry, you're willing to pay more money for food than when you're not, et cetera.
Yeah. So, more about that sports. When you first came into it, there must have been a lot of naysayers to say, oh, you can't use, this is a human thing. You can't use maths and numbers to try and understand these things. And I even see, I don't know if you watch kind of like old TV series, and they normally have like a joke of like, oh, the numbers person, oh, they can't possibly understand these things. But I think the test of time has been like, no, the data on these things is actually really valuable. But do you remember the early days and like many naysayers?
Early days, and even to this day, there's a mix.
Sorry.
Yeah. But the nice thing is, when I worked with the Dodgers and Fred Clear, they saw that this could help them get great players. They ended up making the playoffs, world champions, even back in the late 80s. So we actually liked it that other teams weren't quite bought into it yet, since we would have an advantage. But then over the years, now it's kind of turned the tables that, and let me just add one more story, the defensive shift. When I joined the Cubs, nobody was doing it in the effect that only 3% of all plays, a shift means I stand here, sorry cameraman, for a ball being hit here. I stand here if it's a 90% chance, don't stand there if it's a 10% chance, and that could win 8 or 9 more games per year. But only 3% of the time people do that. And after word caught on, it went from 3% to 52%. And it became so much so that it became boring, and they had to even change the rules to prevent that from happening.
I heard
so
that
it took many years.
Actually went in only just the last year or two, right?
That's just the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But it just shows you that those resisting to the change, and when I say the change that actually had benefit, were kind of left behind. It took over a year and a half, really, for teams to catch on. So innovation is key. if it's the right kind of innovation, could give you a competitive advantage, could help you interface with your customers better. So, being able to iterate quickly, win quickly, and fail quickly is where Databricks, I think, can help.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's such an interesting thing, too. I mean, it's funny, when you talk about the various sports, I think the analytics story that happened in the sports realm also didn't propagate across sports as quickly as one might have imagined. Now, baseball, oddly enough, was one of the places where statistics were always very interesting. I mean, like, when you come up watching baseball, people are throwing statistics out, like even from the very, very early days. But other sports didn't have that same thing. Did you see other teams that were reaching out to you from other sports to get some insights from your analytics experience?
Yeah, great question. So baseball started, they have discrete actions, which makes it a little bit easier, like someone is hitting, and that's like an isolated event. And other sports, like the NBA, it's really patterns of people cooperating, so it's a bit more complex. And in the NFL, you only have 16 games, so it's more complex. So one of my favorite interviews with Travis Kelce. If you haven't heard of him, you might have heard of his girlfriend, Taylor Swift, but he uses analytics, for breaking down the minuscule details. So for example, if you catch the ball and tuck it under your right arm, you catch it under your left arm, the players will know by heart which arm to attack, like just by pure instinct, to try to induce a fumble. So that's like, not from their perspective, it's not advanced analytics, but advanced analytics gives them something very actionable, so they can induce a fumble, and that could be the entire difference of a game or a Super Bowl championship in his case. So
then they're watching the other players and their history in terms of like the game tape of what have you. And I just dated myself horribly by using the term tape, but to see how a player by habit usually puts the ball, is that
exactly.
Kind of thing? Wow.
Tendencies, strengths, weaknesses, habits, and what players have changed lately from one game to the next, 1 year to the next. And that, the players don't do the analytics, they have teams now doing all that. And one other sport I'd like to pull out is, I had a blast before I joined Databricks, spending a couple years traveling the world with McLaren Formula One's race team, using computer vision, using machine learning, engineering, and they have a staff of 350 data engineers, data scientists in their headquarters in England, in Woking, wherever the race may be, in Japan, in Singapore, and Monaco, everyone looking at the data in real time, hundreds of sensors 1,000 times a second to make a very quick adjustment, since that could be a major difference, first place or not.
Wow. Yeah, you can imagine that, again, back to the point about which things are kind of more measurable by their nature. Sensors being built into the cars is something you can actually engineer, you know what I mean? And that may give you a little bit of an advantage in terms of an opportunity, place to go. But so much data.
Yeah. Exactly, the sports side, but then one of our industries is manufacturing, and in racing, aerodynamics is a big deal. You have a wind tunnel, which is the real world, and you have 80,000 car parts that are changeable. 80,000, and the permutations of that are, gazillions. So you need a high-powered compute to do all the different simulations. And then when you narrow it down to a few experiments, put that in the wind tunnel for real life. And you only have a few days before you move from one city to the next.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a real extreme kind of IoT use case,
exactly.
Isn't it? Oh, wow, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, Ari, you've got a book over there.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So just today, we have the downloadable version of it. The summit, our theme is Data Intelligence for All. So just today, I dropped Data Intelligence for Dummies by Wiley. I wanted to thank the group of people that helped make that possible. But if you want to learn what is data intelligence, we do have in general, but then later in the book, it shifts into why Databricks is a great platform for that. And also some of the announcements that were just made at this conference, like AI, BI, and Genie, are in the book. we did know a little bit about it in advance, so we got it in there.
Did you spent yesterday evening editing
up
it.
to the minute, yes. Up to the hour. So yeah, I think we have a link up there. I appreciate it, and hopefully it's educational for people, and then anyone, whether you read the book or you go to our certification, whether it's a result of this conference or going to a meetup or going to a hackathon, we hope your data intelligence has a lot of great success, whatever industry you're in.
So tell us a bit more about the book. Is it for practitioners, or is it for people that lead these teams? Who's it for?
Yeah, so for dummies is just the name of the series. It's popular here. So it's at a high level is what it starts out. So if you want that, read chapters 1 and 2. And then it's practitioners, like some screenshots of the product, architecture breakdown. So that's like chapters 3 and 4, and then like real life use case examples are in there. So it's more towards like the beginner to intermediate, but if you want an overview and you are an data architect, that's a great persona for the book.
Yeah, I think also, I know you've said architect, but people who have to kind of bring things together, and I definitely think with some people, if they know this thing is kind of going on, but they don't really know how they fit into the wider context, even just being able to read and see those architecture diagrams and be like, oh, that's how my work fits into it. Now I understand it, because it tends to be, I've seen a lot of guides that are kind of like very specific, just kind of like, oh, well, you're great in PyTorch, like, let me teach you about this thing. It's like, well, that's not necessarily that easy for people who are new to that kind of environment. So yeah, architecture diagrams, really good for understanding like where you fit in that kind of world.
And when you talk about the practitioners, these are going to be more on the data engineering side, or are there going to be more people who are going to be using AI now, or is that like now like sort of like a crossover and you can't tell the difference anymore?
Yeah, so in the book specifically, we have a whole part of how Gen AI plays in the Databricks intelligence engine, which is one of the things I love the most. I love Databricks Assistant. I love our semantic search, but yeah, in the book, and I also did a breakout session yesterday where I did live demo, went very well, but all the different aspects. When you say data intelligence platform, it's really every single persona. You had mentioned data engineer, so how can data intelligence understand your workload and adjust your performance, your I/O? You can get multiple times, 3x performance improvement. If it's the data engineering when you're consolidating data, it's really helpful. If you have Unity Catalog and you register all of these tables and columns, you could do a more intelligent search. So in the past, if anyone knows SQL and you want to know customer churn's the example, in my demo I did a database of movies. And if you just write the word movie, it has to have an exact match of the word movie. But if in my example I said, which producer brings in the big bucks, it didn't even have the word movie. Okay. And big bucks doesn't, I know it means revenue.
Yeah.
I tried it, and the context that Databricks Intelligence Engine had realized big bucks means revenue, and then it would sort by the word gross, which to me means, oh, that's yucky, but gross is a financial term. It knew all of that without me writing any programs. And then if you want to see the code, you can click and make a Python code, R code, Scala code, etc., and just hit this to less than sign, and it puts in the Databricks notebook if you're in the notebook.
Yeah.
So I want to emphasize Databricks intelligence. Every walk of life, the DB SQL or Databricks SQL has intelligence built in, being able to have non-technical people search for information.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is like the ability, if you're a coder, you could just do /fix. You have a bug, and more likely than not, it'll say, here's where the code needs to be fixed, words about it, and if you like it, do those 2 arrows and try and run it, and that's what I love. I had one of our customers, I don't know if they gave me clearance to say who it was, but it's all over the place. Well, it was actually an NBA team saying, I love it. All I do is say /fix. I brought my boss over, said /fix, and now he's using it to debug his Python. It's that easy in that case.
Yeah, I must say, a lot of the kind of data intelligence things, they're like quality of life improvements, frankly. These things that used to be kind of a bit difficult or are just like annoying to do. So definitely like /fix. It's like, oh, I've forgotten a semicolon. Oh, I've not quite used it. I forgot to import something. Especially when it's like really silly things, just having something to tell you straight away. But I also think in terms of like some of the documentation features that we've got, just like, it's just such a mental shift sometimes to be like, okay, Zen moment, like what am I trying to think? But if something else can kind of get there first, it's like, oh yeah, no, that is what I'm thinking, but I do want to change it a little bit. That's a really nice thing for me anyway.
Yeah, so there's documentation of the code, and then another feature I love is there's documentation at the table level and the column level. And I don't know about you, but there's MDM, master data management, and I used to like architect applications like Merck Pharmaceuticals worldwide inventory system, and there was thousands of columns, and I wasn't very creative. I could just think, this stores numbers, this stores revenue, this stores test tubes, and like, it was so boring. But when I try stuff like that with Databricks, it actually makes more sense. It's more varied, it's more descriptive. But imagine if you have tens of thousands of columns, you'll need people full-time to come up with descriptions, but Databricks, and you should try it yourself, it's so easy. Just the button in the product, and it'll come up with descriptions on its own. And once it comes up with descriptions, if somebody who's non-technical wants to find information, find customers that churned, it will have better context of what type of data
end up
it is.
becoming part of the search value that you can use, Yeah,
your documentation
done.
Made that all.
Something else I really like in Unity Catalog is we've started looking at the usage features as well, and you can now see what tables are popular. So when it comes to, again, something like churn, where like 5 different teams defined it in 5 different ways, you can actually see like which is the popular table and which is the one that you should probably be using, and have probably a good enough understanding of like what's going on if that's the definition that everyone else is using. And I think it's, again, such a quality of life thing that hopefully is going to reduce the amount of duplication, especially when it comes to search as well, just being able to search for things. I actually have a bit of a confession.
Yes?
When I'm building a demo for something, in the olden days, I used to just like start from the documents and be like, all right, let's build this from scratch, let's do the thing. I can just use the search function to see if someone else has made a demo that's very similar, and I can, I might not steal the entire thing, but it's a good starting point to say, oh, okay, then yeah, no, that did work really well. Okay, then yeah, maybe I'll tweak this thing over here.
No doubt.
Also, before I get accused of plagiarism, demo's absolutely fair game when you're more customer facing. I'm not pinching anything that people don't know isn't going to be pinched. But yeah, like the ability to find other things that are going on within an organization. And even if it's just like, oh, how did someone use this particular feature? Or like, oh, I can see a team is doing some kind of modeling. How are they doing it? Let's go have a look at that and say, oh yeah, no, that is really useful. I do think it can be used for our use case. And then other instances as well where it says that you shouldn't be using something. I've been looking for some data. I think, oh, this is, someone sends me a table and they say, Holly, you can use this table to do your analysis. This is all popular libraries that are going on at the moment. But I can see the lineage that's going on in Unity Catalog, and I'm like, hang on a minute. This is not what I wanted at all. So instead of me looking like an absolute idiot and making a load of conclusions that didn't make any sense whatsoever, I was able to go back and kind of dig into the data and say, actually, no, any conclusions that I draw from this is going to be completely wrong, because this is not the data that I wanted.
Yeah, and the data freshness is automatically relevantly and surfaced for you. You already know, oh, well, this hasn't been updated in 6 months. Oh, well, that must clearly be something I need to stay away from. Those kind of things as well. Some of it, the provenance might be the same, but if it hasn't been kept up to date and maintained, there's still that like missing gap. But all of these elements, how long ago, most recently refreshed, exactly what the sources are, all of those things coming together with Unity Catalog is so fun to look at, and really, really, it's massive productivity gains. It's really, really fun.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love, following up on your points, is there's data drift. And especially in in business intelligence, always had that challenge. Your traditional model gets out of date since the data's changed. But now in the Gen AI world, like if your model is built, or your fine tuning, or your RAG, or prompt engineering is built on data that was 5 years ago, or 1 year ago, or 5 minutes ago, you want to know that. Like if you're asking which product is the less expensive or whatever it is, you want that to know what's the most up to date. And also I wanted, you're also mentioning, like with the lineage and everything, that this search and the semantic search isn't just in the data in your tables, it also includes your notebooks and your AI models. So when you do that, all the things that the three of us were talking about in your functions, it's really a search of everything that is registered in Unity Catalog.
Yeah. All right, Ari, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. You have some fantastic stories.
Well, it's been an honor. Thank you all.
Oh gosh, thank you so much, Ari. We have a video to show you right now. We're going to be going and kicking it out over there. Thank you very much. We're here live at the Lakehouse. All right, and really quickly I want to mention that we've had such a great time at this show, and one of the things that's always true at Data and AI Summit in particular, but also, of course, in most shows, is that you have fantastic partners that are sponsors that are here at the event, and so we wanted to be able to have an opportunity to highlight some of those. And Ari, I always wanted to ask you, like, how many sponsors do we have this year, or at least just rough ballpark numbers, and how are we doing this year, and how has that grown over the time?
Yeah, we love our partnership. It's really all types of partners. There's over 100 of them exhibiting here, and you have ISVs, system integrators, you have technology partners, and all of them have this better together story. I've been with other companies, and a lot of it's just marketing, but here, it's like just on yesterday's show, DBT Labs, Fivetran, Data IQ, things that make the product faster or less expensive, or ingestion, or being able to have pre-processing, post-processing, new types of data ingestion, or consulting services. If a customer wants to be successful and they want an extension to augment their staff, a lot of our partners are here, and we're actually going to be doing some rapid fire meetings with a couple of our key partners here as well. Yeah,
we're really excited about that part, and it's one of those things that it's such an important thing to appreciate the ecosystem broadly, to understand that everybody who's using these technologies, using Databricks as a platform and getting things done, is running a business, and so they have something about their business that is not just Databricks, but they actually have like their product, they have their expertise, and the work that they're doing. So we want to be able to make sure that we have ways to integrate, and that's where having partners who specialize in different areas and how we can connect and integrate with them is like intrinsic to the success of every business model, ours included. So it's so great to be ready to celebrate and be appreciative of partners in that way.
Exactly, and we have 100, and like you say, you don't want to have favorite children, but you're going to be hearing from a lot of them, and at some of the logos on the kickoff, from the system integrators, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, cloud partners, all the three major ones, with Microsoft and Google, Amazon, like those partnerships are incredible. And with Microsoft, Power BI, with Tableau, with Click, who I believe we'll be hearing from as well. So, different technology partners.
That's
huge. This list goes on and on. Prophecy, I'm just looking at some of the names out here.
Right on.
Of all walks of life.
Right, and then of course, we had Jensen come to speak, so obviously NVIDIA and a hardware partner like that is clearly somebody you can't mess around with, and of course, they're going to tell you that they have a much fuller stack than just hardware, so I don't want NVIDIA to come back to me later and say, hey, you don't forget the rest of what we do. So wonderful to have these kind of partners and make sure to have the relationships that are really good with all of them. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and if you haven't seen Jensen's keynote with Ali yesterday, it was incredible, a really strong partnership, and of course the NVIDIA story is everywhere. I got a nice meeting with Jensen in the green room.
Oh, nice.
Beforehand, his leather jacket was real.
It's a real leather jacket.
Yeah, they're investors in us, they're partners with us, but they've really very few people have changed the world like they have. The concept of the GPU. I used them to play video games. I thought that was cool enough back in the day. But yeah, now the intense compute power for the masses, for the enterprise is real.
Yeah.
And he changed the world.
Yeah, and I remember actually when we talked about, when we had saw Fei Li's talk during the keynote yesterday as well, and she was talking about this spatial computing thing, and like, when you see where things are going in terms of how much computational resources are going to be needed, this kind of path is only growing, and it's not, we're not at the end of a journey here, right? This is like still on the upswing. So watching that happen, knowing NVIDIA's leadership in terms of how the hardware is being delivered and the power that's being delivered, and knowing that there's going to be a ripe and rich space in general as the ecosystem grows, it's really going to be something to watch.
Exactly, a lot of the compute power has just been to process things, like summarizing videos, for example, like that has just begun to happen. The mass amount of everything on the internet, every private video, public video, all types of spatial data. But then the next thing of the growth of these GPUs is the actual new content creation. Like with the demo the last couple days, this morning, yesterday, creating new videos, new images. So I think we're going to be tossing to Holly back in the Expo Hall.
Fantastic. Let's send her out to the Expo Hall. Holly is out there, and she's got a couple of partners to talk with out there.
Awesome.
And welcome back. And we have taken our Lakehouse on the road, if that's possible. We are here in the Expo Hall, surrounded by all the action. We have all of the partner stands all around us. And as we've gone on our little journey, we have been bumping into a few people. So with me, I have Rick Tam-Daniels, a CTO from Informatica. Hello, welcome to, well, not really our Lakehouse anymore, but our Expo Hall. How are you having a good time this week?
It has been a fantastic week. Starting off with our Data Integration Partner of the Year Award by Databricks.
Congratulations.
Thank you
well
so much.
Done.
Yeah.
That was earlier on in the week, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Well done. And in terms of why it is that something that people really enjoy using, can you give the folks at home a little bit of an intro about Informatica and how it works with Databricks and how people are successful together?
Absolutely. So Informatica, we provide a cloud-native, AI-driven platform called the Intelligent Data Management Cloud. And really what it's designed to do is to bring end-to-end data management capabilities to help customers succeed with their data analytics and AI initiatives. And that's everything from data integration, data quality, data governance, all the way up to master data management in one cloud-native platform.
Excellent. So I heard a bit of AI in there, so yes. I'm going to assume that this is a slightly newer product, maybe that has come out fairly recently, or maybe I'm wrong. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about how that's been helping people?
So we've actually been one of the early adopters of AI technology within our product line. We've had what's called our Claire engine for about 6 or 7 years, using machine learning and those kind of approaches. Let's call it classic AI, right? But now we're really excited. Just a few weeks ago at Informatica World, we introduced our Claire GPT and Claire Copilot.
Oh, excellent.
To now bring generative AI to accelerate the business of data management.
Excellent. And when people are using it, how are you finding that they're having the most success with it?
So we just came out with it, but already the reviews and the results from customers are fantastic. I mean, look, generative AI it captures the imagination because it really does make some very complex tasks and activities so much more accessible to so many more parts of the business.
Absolutely.
And customers are just excited about all the possibilities that it offers.
Excellent. Okay, then, thank you. And you have many, many awards to your name. So we've also got Gartner Leader in 3 separate categories. What is it about Informatica that's setting you apart from kind of everywhere else in the market? Because 3 is impressive.
Yes, it's a great point. I mentioned the variety of different types of services and capabilities we offer. So customers really do value the fact they can get all that in one platform. But on top of that, not only get all those capabilities, but those capabilities are best of breed in their area. So industry leading in each individual area. When you combine that to a single platform, it's truly transformative.
Okay then, wonderful. And again, do you have any kind of customer stories that kind of like really demonstrate, how you've been able to really help them with what it is that they're doing?
So absolutely. So I actually presented with KPMG here as a customer. They're also a partner as well.
Excellent.
But as a customer with their CDO office, and they really have built an entirely new analytics and AI foundation, leveraging Informatica IDMC, which is our platform, together with Databricks on Azure. So
Excellent. Can you tell us a bit more about it? So, I mean, KPMG, what kind of data are they looking at? Is it project data or is it HR ops kind of data?
Well, it's supporting all aspects of their business, whether it's their advisory business or their audit and tax business. All those are highly data centric, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
They need to collect data quickly, they need to make sure it's governed and traceable. Obviously, accuracy is incredibly important, so governance is something these guys cannot deal without, right?
Yes, yes. All right then. Thank you so much. So, if people are interested and they wanted to find out more about Informatica, where is a good place for them to go?
Well, our website has a whole landing page just for Databricks, all our great innovations. We announced a whole bunch of new exciting things this week. One of them being our generative AI blueprint for Databricks and for DBRX. And we actually had a demo in our booth here of a chat agent bringing in your trusted, high quality customer data to ground your conversational application.
I have to ask more about this. So tell me more about this demo with DBRX. I'm very curious.
Well, so one of the things we're looking at is how do we take the potential of generative AI and make it a reality for the enterprise, right? And some of the challenges you run into are, well, I need my data to be, my conversation to be accurate. I need to be grounded in my enterprise data.
Yes.
And not just any data, my high quality, most trusted data. And that's what the demo focuses on, is we call our master data, bringing that into vectorizing it within Databricks, and then allowing that to be used for RAG use cases.
Oh, excellent. Oh, so a really wonderful RAG use case there. They are some of my favorites, to be honest. I know there's a lot of promise about what can be done with AI, and there's a lot of big pie in the sky things, but I really do enjoy the kind of practical applications, and they tend to be very RAG based. So I'm very grateful that you're able to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the other use cases is around your governance and metadata. A good example is a typical public model is not going to know if I'm talking about my customer, is it a company or is it a person? Right? And when you have good metadata that describes the semantics of your business, and you can add that to your context, your prompt enrichment, it creates a much more accurate conversation as well as accurate responses.
Okay then, that's absolutely wonderful. Right, thank you so much for taking the time with us, Rick. I really appreciate you being here. But we have many more guests who are lined up as well. And so I would very much like to relieve you of your duties. And next we have Chris from Immuta. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. So you are a public sector CTO at Immuta, aren't you? So you must have had a very busy week.
It's been a very long week of meetings, sitting at the booth, and talking to a lot of different customers and prospects. So yeah, definitely.
And let's not be coy. I know Immuta always put on very good parties. Have you been at those as well?
Yes. Actually, the big thing this week was that this year we actually created the Immuta Lounge just down the street, which was great because people were able to come by, get breakfast, get lunch, and then of course happy hour at the end, which is the most important thing. Which
absolutely
always seemed to be the most crowded during the whole time. I wonder why, but yeah.
Yes, it is day 4, and I think day 1, everyone was very bright and bushy and excited. And day 4, there are a few faces this morning that had a great time last night. Let's put it that way. Anyway, but let's talk about work, shall we? So in terms of Immuta and how you think about it, I mean, I think about it as like Unity Catalog plus, but I feel like that's not doing it justice. So tell us in your own words.
Yeah, I mean, so what's great about Immuta is it actually gives power back to the data stewards. They're the ones who declare policy, but normally have to get some type of DBA or admin to actually implement the policy and hope it actually is right. So what Immuta actually does is we allow them to create plain English policies, which they are now able to declare. And then when it's written in Immuta, we actually take that plain English, we convert it down to the Unity Catalog SQL, and we automate the policy down into all the tables within Unity. So now all those policies are done consistently, and the data steward knows that it's actually being done.
Yeah, so this is a very important thing and very topical at the moment as well. I mean, can you give us some stats or some numbers? So I know of some horror stories, which I'm not allowed to repeat, of how hard admin can be in terms of like making sure that the right people have the right access. And that's so complicated. If you've got a team of like 2,000 people, that's so difficult.
Yeah, and it's amazing because like with Immuta, we do true attribute-based access control. And typically people do this using role-based access control. And the way I view roles as an analogy is as like an email distribution list, right? And if anyone's tried to find the right email distribution list, there's massive bloat. Like within Immuta, we're about 250 people. We have over 700 email distribution lists. Good luck finding the right one. So with Immuta, with these attribute-based access controls, it makes it a lot easier to be able to create the policies by bringing back user attributes, data attributes, create the policies, so you actually create less policies because they happen dynamically and at runtime. And we have customers that have literally doing these policies on top of hundreds of thousands of data sources with thousands of users. So if you were trying to do this with role-based access, you would probably have like 50,000, 60,000 or more types of policies that you're trying to create. And with Immuta, they're being able to find that they can create in the tens rather than the thousands.
That is absolutely fantastic. Do you have any kind of stats on kind of time savings or?
No, I mean, not off the top of my head, but I mean, it is definitely a massive time saving because you don't actually have to get people constantly creating new policies.
Yes.
You have the data stewards who are able to do it, and because of the automation, as you onboard new data sets, we are able to push those policies out.
That's
so
very
you
clever.
don't actually have to recreate the policies for the new data sets, obviously giving people automated access to the data, and they don't have to ask for the data either, right? Normally they go through workflows, getting into ServiceNow, trying to request access, hoping someone actually clicks the button on time.
Yes, I know that pain. Yeah, I mean, you know, in terms of time savings, it's not just for the admins, it's also for the end users as well.
For the end users in that time to data.
Yeah, like if you're trying to start a new project or you've moved teams, or even just, you know, something new has been created and someone didn't quite set it right at the beginning, that can be such a headache, especially in global companies where it's kind of like, oh, well, I've set the request, but the SLA is 48 hours, and I have to sit here and twiddle my thumbs. And I dread to think, you know, I used to do consulting. I know what my day rate was. I dread to think of all of those hours that have been wasted. People just sat ready to go on a project and can't get access.
It's frustrating because I've been there too. I mean, my career's been a lot of like selling to like government organizations or consulting to the government organizations. So I've seen like both sides of it, and you know, as that consultant, as I'm going in for a new role, like most of the time I'm sitting around waiting just to get access to data to do my job.
Yes. All right then. Thank you so much. So we've also had this new I think you've probably noticed this new trend of kind of AI, but also the new assets that come with this as well. So it's no longer just data sets. There's also things like models and, you know, all these other things that are coming up in Unity Catalog as well. Can you tell us about, you know, Immuta in the age of AI? What does this mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll say kind of with classical or traditional AI, what we've always been able to do is actually make sure that the data scientists only have access to the right data. We actually help to prevent bias in building some of these models because we can hide those demographic features.
Oh, that's really interesting.
That can actually cause the bias. And actually,
sorry, can you say a bit more about that? That's really interesting. I've not heard that before.
Okay, yeah, so typically what happens is that, you know, we've seen a lot of times that models can become biased because usually like with age or sex, race is another big one, right? And a lot of times because the data set doesn't have enough data, maybe people choose the wrong data. And so if you can actually keep the data scientists from utilizing those features, obviously the bias can't build in. Plus Immuta has a unique feature called a purpose-based control, which is kind of like a data use agreement. And so I can put someone into this purpose-based control to where they have to agree to the statement, and in that statement they'll actually have to give metrics about like, does this model work better with or without those potentially bias causing things? I have to publish out my data set so people can validate the data and things of that nature. And then only in that case can they actually start using those potentially bias causing features.
Okay.
So it's that's kind of exciting, and of course today everyone's excited about Gen AI.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Which is the whole new hotness, I guess, these days. So we're excited that Databricks came out with their vector database.
Yes.
So we've actually started building into that, utilizing our actually native controls within Unity.
Oh, excellent.
Like, and if you think of an example of classifying those chunks as like public or confidential data, you can use our existing row-based features to where the chunks can go to the vector database if I have, you know, both confidential and public attributes, all that data can go. But if I can only see public data, only the public data goes. And when I prompt that engine in a RAG use case, I only get back the data that I was able to see.
Okay, that's actually fantastic because I'm well aware that's actually a little bit of a product gap that we have as vanilla Databricks. Vector search doesn't do at the moment, and so many great RAG use cases out there. They do have that part of a fundamental thing of kind of like, yes, you can search for your holiday documentation or whatever in the company, but what you can't do is go and search for, I don't know, top secret filings of whatever stuff. So,
so
that's
we're trying to attack it at the data layer within Databricks, rather than what we've seen some people do is try to attack it at the prompt layer, and then have to intercept those prompts and do some things to make that all work. So again, we're working with what we have within Unity. We're excited to see what happens as new features around Gen AI get brought into Unity and how we can further integrate into that space.
Okay then, wonderful. Thank you so much. I have so many questions. I'm probably going to come by your booth afterwards and harass you some more. That's great. If people wanted to have a look more at Immuta, or they wanted to maybe give it a try themselves, what are their options?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is, like, one, we have a YouTube channel with tons of demos out there to learn about Immuta, and of course, our website at immuta.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, on to our next guest. We have, very happy to announce, from Prophecy, we have Vikas, who is a COO and co-founder and needs no introduction. Happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I am happy to be here.
Okay, it's been a packed week. What have you been spending your week doing? I assume you've not been spending the entire week here. Have you been keeping up with any of the announcements?
I am, and this is our Super Bowl. I mean, we are built on Databricks.
Yes.
We are natively out of the box built. We love the technology Databricks has built. It's an amazing way to give customers the processing power that they always needed, and then Databricks brings them. Now what we do is we just make it easier for everybody to access it. Think about now, take the Databricks, have it access to everybody. Now we are the multiplier effect. So we love it here. The energy is amazing. Unity catalog going, open source is amazing. Love the serverless announcement. I can't tell you how many customers are excited about being serverless, and I love the announcements. I love the vibe here.
Yeah, so just in case people at home aren't that familiar with what Prophecy does, so if it's fair to say, you offer kind of like an easier on-ramp into Databricks. It's a lot more kind of low-code, no-code. There's some DAGs and some UIs, and it is backed by the compute that Databricks offers, but obviously moving to serverless is going to really improve things in terms of user experience.
Yeah, I would rephrase it because we rephrased it recently. Yes, it was low-code, no-code only earlier, but what has happened recently is that productivity in today's world is basically co-pilots. And when we go to our customers and they say, you make us so much productive, and with the advent of AI in the product, so we are the new data transformation co-pilot. And
excellent.
It has 3 legs, low-code being one, the AI being one, and the compiler being the last. So we basically combine the potency of all 3 components and make it super easy for anybody to use, irrespective of the skill set they have, irrespective of the functions that they do. If you're a data user in a company and you want to access and use Databricks, you got to use Prophecy.
So tell me more a bit kind of about your average kind of persona. Is this people who are, they have a job to do, there's some data that they need and it's kind of in their way and they can use Prophecy to help? Or are we looking more at the data engineer who knows that like this shouldn't take this long to do and could just very quickly put it all together and let Prophecy take care of it?
Yeah, I was not lying when I said every persona. So started with data engineers. So data engineers are, today, data engineering is a code writing function. You're basically taking the business logic and writing in a code. Now the challenge with the code is, when you scale it, it's very difficult to manage it. Imagine if one coder goes away, another one comes in. I'm a computer science graduate by training. It's very difficult to see anybody else's code, debug it, put it in production. So, so the effectiveness and productivity of data engineering is our first use case, or the primary use case. Then comes all the other citizen data users, right? There are like analysts, there are data scientists. Today, data scientists are maybe spending 80% of their time cleaning up the data or prepping data while they are paid for actually running models or training models. So we actually are making their lives easier to say, here is Prophecy, it'll cut your time of data prep by 80-90%.
That's
so
very
that you can
impressive.
actually focus on what matters the most.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that joke, isn't there? You know, so many people study to become data scientists, do machine learning, and then they get to their first day of work and realize, oh, actually,
It's the plumbing work.
yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay then, so that's with our kind of data scientists. Maybe tell us more about analysts and kind of like how it can help people get started. Because I'm a big fan of kind of enablement and allowing people to, to do more with their data and to, really get into the nitty gritty of things.
Analyst, analyst is a very interesting category.
Yes.
I think analyst is a wide spectrum of users. You could be sitting right next to business, pulling out reports or doing some light transformations. You could also be a data user just joining a couple of Excels or wondering how to join it.
Yes.
But you know exactly the outcome you need. The common theme about analyst is you know the outcome that you need so that your business can operate in it. So that's the analyst for us. So what we have done is we have taken the persona of the analyst and given them a layer where they can actually, without knowledge of what to do. For example, if I could just write English, say, give me my top 100 customers by spend by geography. Just write the English. What we will give you is not the code, like every other person out there will do. We'll give you the visual pipeline because, remember, those analysts don't know what to do with the code. So we'll give them the visual pipeline. They can take the pipeline, dissect it, edit it, manage it, deploy it if they want to, and that's there. I mean, now what that does is, once it makes them super enabled. Second is, it also now cut the dependency from those engineers a little bit, who could do much better work rather than standing in line for building the Python jobs. Yeah,
I think also having that visual element to it as well. Again, if this is your first kind of foray into bigger data sets, a lot of people take it for granted, just kind of like the logical steps that are needed to do a thing. And you kind of see this when people kind of first get started, and they're like, oh, well, I'll do it like this, and then, oh, wait, no, actually, oh, no, I shouldn't have done it that way around. I needed to do something else first, or I need to kind of like swap some things around. I think having that kind of visual element to it makes it a lot easier.
So you can take it any which ways, right? One you said is right. It's very, very hard to first build it, write the code of it, and test it, and then say, oh, it doesn't work. Then go back to the scratch and figure out what didn't work. Versus a visual way where you have a pipeline where you can see the data flowing, you know exactly what broke. And when it broke, you know what to fix, where to fix, and how to kind of, it's such a speedy time to market. It's unbelievable. All of our customers love it.
Excellent. So you mentioned earlier about serverless and how that is going to be an absolute boon for you. Can you go into a bit more detail about how serverless is going to help Prophecy users?
So all of the users. All of the Databricks users. I mean, we are tied with Databricks a little bit. All of the users, whoever I talked to in the conference, I said, what did you like the most in all the announcement? This is serverless. Because the thing is, nobody wants to take a decision of how much compute do I want to provision for what kind of job. Databricks is actually taking the pain away from the user, and then inherently us. Because today you can go into Prophecy and drag down and build, say, what kind of compute do you want to provision? Imagine if that was not needed. They can come and build a job. Databricks spins up itself based on what they need. Serverless spins off itself. Huge cost optimization, huge productivity gain.
Excellent. And so I know you've been busy at work for the last year also on kind of new features and new capabilities that you can help your customers with. Is there any others that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so a few things that have come up recently, and we are growing by leaps and bounds. Obviously, startup, product is really making, and we do invest a lot in R&D. We're really proud of the innovation that we do every year. So this year, two main things coming up. One is our new product on SQL. Now, because with the advent of DB SQL out there, so we are actually letting our customers to now produce SQL underneath, because whatever they do with Prophecy always produces open source code. Earlier it was Spark, now it is SQL. Now they can actually not just use Spark Compute, but also SQL, DB SQL, to execute all the workloads. So that's a big deal, which helps customers be really flexible. Second is all the AI that we are adding. For example, you can write English, get visual pipeline. There's all the inline AI, unit tests getting automatically generated, the documentation getting automatically written. I know it sounds trivial, but imagine, all the code that you write has comments in it, right? I think most of the engineers would sort of recognize the benefit of it, or the leaders will.
Yes.
It's amazing to have a commented code base, and that's what we'll say auto document everything. So bunch of AI, bunch of on DB SQL, apart from many I think nuances on the Spark side as well.
Okay then, absolutely wonderful. Right, thank you so much for spending the time to talk with us today. If people wanted to have a go with Prophecy or wanted to understand a little bit more about it, what should they do?
Go to prophecy.io. Our booth is right there. I don't know if you can show it. Come and see us right there. But yeah, come and see us. Prophecy.io is where we are. Find one of us. We'll happily do a demo with you. But yeah, prophecy.io is where we are.
Okay then, wonderful. All right, thank you all very much. I think now we have a video from one of our Women in Data events. I hope you enjoy it.
I am ready whenever you are.
I'm ready. We are back again, second year live at the Lakehouse. Hi, I'm Pearl, and I am a senior technical marketing engineer here at Databricks, and I am so excited to be here at the summit and talk to you a little bit about Girls Who Code and why I'm so passionate about it. I think that at a young age, I'm not gonna lie to you, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew that I would do great things. And so being able to go from teaching to tech and transition and make such an impact in the work and in the role that I'm in is amazing. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without mentors and sponsors and people that just wanted to support me.
Databricks has partnered with Girls Who Code for the last few years. Girls Who Code is an international nonprofit really supporting women and non-binary children to get the computer science and technical skill sets they need. So here we have some conference attendees taking a moment to customize their super cool avatars using some code. So you can do a bunch of different customizations, hair, skin texture, body size, all these super cool outfits, and using a lot of code. So folks who are using this activity can do a little bit of coding, but also make it really fun and creative and showcase the diversity of the community.
We encourage, our women to empower our younger girls, to let them know that they can do anything that they set their heart and minds to, especially when it comes to the world of tech where there isn't a lot of minority, there aren't a lot of women. And so Girls Who Code really makes that their mantra and their mission to encourage and empower more girls to get into tech.
All right, and we are back in the Lakehouse, and I am so thrilled to be here with our guest, Dr. Luke Treglown. He's here from Thomas International, Databricks customer. He's been doing some wonderful things here. I'm really excited to have him here. Luke, thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you for having me, it's been great.
Wonderful to be here. So I wanted to ask, one of the things, we really love to, we can talk among ourselves and have Databricks people on the show and say, tell us how great Databricks is. But I really would love, in your frank, unvarnished way, please do let us know, what's it been like? You've done a migration with and gotten onto Databricks from other systems. Can you tell us about what that journey was like and what you liked and what you didn't?
Absolutely. So I guess a bit of context. So Thomas has a very rich and long history. The company is 45 years old. It was family owned for a long time. Tiny town in the UK called Marlow, run by a very few number of people. But about 6.5 years ago, bought out by private equity. That meant we had a big shift in our focus as a company and how we do product. So we went from being very consultancy-led as an organization to being digital first, digital transformation, SaaS. So every buzzword you can imagine when it comes to these kind of things, we were trying to nail. That put a really big shift for us in terms of we needed to have the right data at the right time to understand what our customers were doing, what were they loving, what were they hating, and how ultimately can we do more of the stuff they love. So we needed a data infrastructure that allowed us to scale with the ambitions we had and also be able to do that. So we migrated from Snowflake over to Databricks 18 months ago, and it was awesome. So one of the big bits for us were, as I say, small company, we're a really small team as well, 4 or 5 people.
Oh, wow.
We needed something that was able not only to, in a very collaborative, seamless way, build our pipelines, do our data quality checks, build data products, data assets within a warehousing and business intelligence point of view. The other bit was we're moving more into that data science space. We want to unlock the capability there, do more around machine learning. ChatGPT blowing onto the scene last year and bringing AI in. So we needed something that allowed us to scale with that. It was seamless, it was effortless. We migrated in 3 weeks. I do not recommend migrating in 3 weeks, but you can. This is a cautionary tale. You can do it. It was stressful, but yeah, a huge amount of planning in terms of how we migrated, how we switch it off. But yeah, I haven't looked back really. It's just unlocked so much capabilities for us. We have an amazing foundation to continue building our data products. And a really unexpected piece for us as well is onboarding new people into our team. So we just hired a data engineer who joined us 3 months ago. Getting her, I jokingly say, indoctrinated, ingratiated into the Databricks world has made her onboarding seamless in terms of using a combination of Python, SQL, R, all the languages she's comfortable with to be able to hit the ground running and deliver value for us as a team.
Fantastic. That's really
it's a lot there, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a 3-week migration, one, I mean, that's out of the worldly. I mean, honestly, that's... I can't even, I'm struggling to put words to like how fast that sounds to me. I mean, one of the things, in a lot of migration stories that we talk about having like systems running in parallel for, months at a time after or during the migration process, and saying we're going to write to both and make sure that we have everything in parallel because we're actually still testing and confirming. And you went 3 weeks, soup to nuts, everything, wow.
So one of the big reasons for that is, we're kind of small, medium enterprise, only about 150, 160 employees. One of the really big things as well is, I'll be candid about it. So before we did the migration, we hadn't had a lot of trust from our C-suite in terms of what the investment in our data assets could deliver for them as leaders of the business as a whole, our customers. So there was almost a bit of skepticism going, you can do this, you've got to keep it cost neutral though. Don't want to be spending any more money than what you're spending now because you don't see the benefit. So a big part of the 3 weeks was our Snowflake renewal was coming up. So we literally needed to hit it to get to that cost neutrality. I don't want to wait another year to start having these conversations. I knew the time and value we'd lose from all the other unlocks for data science and machine learning as a result of that. So that's where the 3 weeks come from, and yeah, it was hell to leather, but got it done.
Okay, well, I mean, hey, sometimes a forcing function can be a good thing.
Exactly.
Wow, well done. I mean, that's quite the thing. Really. So, in this time then, and you mentioned something about how having made the migration sort of unlocked new ideas of more things that could be done. Tell me a bit about like how that might have been in the space of like, given that AI has come on so hard. Like when you mentioned ChatGPT, and that really was only about 18 months ago.
It was.
So now, what AI things maybe have you unlocked that you didn't have before?
So for us, and I imagine for a lot of people, the ChatGPT piece last year was just game-changing in terms of how people were thinking about delivering value to their customers and the product aspect of it. I'm conscious how many people I'm saying this live to. This is my slightly flippant view outside of the tech space was the reason it got so much traction was not necessarily the technology itself. So the average person using it wasn't there going, wow, LLMs is mind-blowing. But for us, it was, they were able to ask a question in a wording they chose, and it gives a really, really good answer back in pretty much real time. That capability had never been seen at that scale before. So we took that and went, how could we do something similar for us at Thomas and our product? So our background is in human behavior and profiling individuals to help them interact, collaborate, communicate better at work through understanding yourself and understanding each other. So traditional old psychometric assessments, companies would, you do an assessment, you throw a 40-page report at them and go, figure out yourself kind of thing, go read it through and find your answer. We wanted to flip it on its head a bit and went, what if we could make this more dynamic for the person? What if we could allow them to interrogate and ask questions of their own profile and profiles of their colleagues? So instead of going, I've got a meeting with this person, flip through my report and find the answer, suddenly opening up and going, I've got a meeting with Luke coming up. How should I structure it based on his profile and the kind of information or how he wants to receive information to have the biggest success there? So that was our product's idea, and honestly, a year ago it felt like a really, really ambitious pipe dream. And it was pretty much a year ago to the day we joined a RAG masterclass run by Puneet and Maria over in the UK, which is fantastic. And it's just this click moment of, this is everything we want to do, and we now know how to do it. So we ran with a whole bunch of proof of concepts in the tail end of last year, started to use things like vector search, the Mosaic vector search, which was massive value unlock for us. We were trying to overcomplicate things and use natural language processing, part of speech tagging. It just wasn't working. Vector search unlocked masses for us. But as I say, the migration over to Databricks just gave us that foundation where we had these ideas, we could go to the marketplace and just hit these things at speed and really iterate, learn what works, what didn't, and ultimately go, this has got legs, let's start building it and getting it into production, getting it to customers, which has flown, absolutely flown.
The speed of being able to experiment with things and actually get results back so fast,
yes.
so that your ideas can actually have a chance to really be realized, at least to sort of see, like, I love the point where you said this has legs. Like you didn't necessarily say that this is ready immediately, but you knew that you were seeing like the possibility open up for you quickly. That ability to experiment like that, I love that part about the way the platform works.
And another big part of it as well, for anyone out there who's thinking of doing this, keeping a control on the costs is really important for us. Again, small company didn't used to have the trust in the data bit. Being able to do it and have super control over the scaling of it, the size of everything, to run this experiment, throw it out to customers and go, do they like it, do they not? And we go, actually, we built some experiments we can throw away. We haven't decimated this year's P&L. But the ones we have done, we can now start to invest in and really run with and invest more in the resourcing behind it.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. I love that idea. So now, you've mentioned a bit about what Thomas does, as far as this bit about profiling and relationship about how people are and the sort of psychological element of it. And I understand that your doctorate is actually in psychology.
It is, yes.
So can you tell me a bit about how those things have come together? You've done a great job. I mean, you sound absolutely like a data scientist who knows the business of things of this and then the technology part, but then you're actually talking about working with people. You actually, tell me a little bit more about like how those two things come together for you as part of this work.
So yeah, I'm defected over to data science about 3 years ago, but I'd say with my PhD, so it's all around personality and social psychology, who we are as people, how we operate as groups. The AI part of this has been fascinating because, without going too existential and philosophical, the language we use to describe ourselves or talk about someone else, it allowed us to not be overly prescriptive and go, this is the term that everyone uses for this exact situation at this exact time.
Yeah.
Some people, different companies have different cultures and different words have different meaning. The AI element and the LLM elements allowed us to really unlock that, and for people to bring their own meaning and understanding I say, learning more about themselves, learning more about how their colleagues operate, learning more about how they operate as a team as well. So really, we call it kind of next-gen people science. So people science has had a long, brilliant history. This is all about how we take that great psychology and underpinning science and democratize it and make it more accessible for the average person. You don't need a PhD to be able to interpret it anymore. You don't need a big, long training course to interpret it. How can you get that easy access and value from it quicker and easier?
Brilliant, brilliant. I love that. And if you don't mind me picking at this a little
bit,
the people science story and Thomas as a company, I remember seeing something a little bit about what Thomas published about how they put ethics at a very high in a very high position in how everything goes. What have you been seeing in the context of using the AI and are there things that you find that make it actually so that it's easier to sort of push the ethical story forward, or any things that make it harder?
So a big thing for us around, before we even started with AI, embedding it into our product, we laid out a charter of ethics, because the very nature of what we do is personal. To a certain extent, it's vulnerable. We're talking about people's profiles, and what we never wanted to do was layer AI on top of this and compound any skepticism, any worry that there's going to be misuse of data or other people abusing this information. We've seen scandals from companies like Cambridge Analytica a few years ago where they were using this information. So ethics has always been at the heart of it for us. One of the big things that is key for us with the AI element is having that transparency. So building our glass box, not a black box, around it. Okay. We want to make sure that everything we build, if a customer or if a person using our product goes, but why, but how? How does it do this? How does it know this about me? We're able to clearly take them through that journey and say, well, here's the information it's using, here's how it's secure, it's not going anywhere else, it's in our systems, it's in our databases, this is how the AI is using it, this is how it's getting to these answers, so they feel comfortable, confident, and composed in terms of using that. So I say that ethics part of it has been really important and valuable for us, because then it spills out into all of the diversity, equality, and inclusivity work that we do loads of in psychology anyway. So we're saying, we want to represent people fairly. The only way to do that is to have a glass box approach and make sure it's transparent for that.
That makes perfect sense, and such a good thing to see. I'm a really big fan of having people learn and appreciate that AI in and of itself is just the powerful tool.
Yeah.
And then the question is, how do you apply that powerful tool to the use cases that we have in the world, find our way to good uses, and may find our way to delivering value that people will really make benefit, as opposed to, that's a challenge that we have, because it's so easy for these things to go in any direction, right? But power is power. It's very capable. So,
and this is where the RAG bit for us was really important as well. To go, we're not doing and exposing it to huge amounts of information. We're training it on you. The AI is a lens on you or your colleague. It's not trying to draw in loads of other stuff, which again allows us to have far greater control and constraints around what it's going to say, what it's going to do, and I say embed that ethics into that.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, you've been here at Summit this time around, you came out here from the UK. How do you think about just coming to the event, and what was it like?
I cannot get over the scale of it. It is absolutely incredible. I've been walking around all day, and I seem to keep finding different rooms and unlocking different stuff. The level of speakers has been incredible. Meeting all the different people, all the different vendors, all the different attendees has been incredible. It's been an absolutely amazing experience. Slightly jet lagged, but doing all right. Chugging through coffee, and it's going well.
Wonderful. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, this is Dr. Luke Treglown. He's been here from Thomas International. It's a wonderful, wonderful company doing some great things in the HR kind of people science kind of space, and wanted to thank you for coming out and making time with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
All right. And now Holly's going to come back and join me, and our next guest is going to join me. I'm really excited to have Naveen Zutshi here. He is our CIO. So we have somebody really close to the top here with us, and we're so excited because, one of the things about working in the space of this particular technology is that we also literally have a platform that we need to work with as employees of a company ourselves. And he's the guy who makes it all happen for us. And it's a wonderful thing to be a part of this company and to be a part of working with it. So Naveen, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Kobie. Thank you, Holly.
Yes, absolutely wonderful to have you here. I'm well aware that you've probably had a very busy week. Would you like to start off by sharing some highlights that you've had?
It's been amazing. Just in 2 years, I've been here 2.5 years, the amount of growth we have seen in terms of the number of customers that come into these sessions, the amount of enthusiasm they show about our products, the kind of innovation we are doing and the speed with which we are doing it, and the amount of new releases we have.
Yes.
One of the things that we didn't have 2.5 years ago was we were not well known by CIOs. We were really well known by engineers and loved by our engineers community. And so just this year alone in the CIO circle, we had over 100 CIOs come in. And at the Exec Summit, we had over 700 executives show up. And we're really excited about the growth we have seen with our customers.
So that is a huge amount of kind of execs and CIOs to have kind of under one roof. What were the kind of trends that kind of went on, the discussion, the talking points? What was hot for the CIOs this year?
They were incredibly enthusiastic about the fact that we are open sourcing Unity Catalog. We are making that interoperable with other compute engines as well. So that's amazing to see. AI BI.
Yes.
Our foray into AI-driven BI is something that we use internally quite extensively.
Yes.
All of our reporting and dashboards is built on it, and having our customers use it as well is exciting to see. There are so many features. I can spend the whole day talking.
So I guess maybe for people at home that might not know, in terms of the way that we use Databricks on Databricks, can you share a bit more about that and kind of, how much we use it?
We use it extensively. We have over 10,000 tables on Databricks. We have over 10 petabytes of data.
Yes.
We get data from 60 different regions around the world for product and usage data that we correlate every minute across for rating, that we share billings back to our customers. And then we build a lot of data products on Databricks.
Yes.
So our security team has built the SIM that is using Databricks. We have built a revenue, subledger, and contract rate automation on Databricks. And then we have built a lot of Gen AI tools now on Databricks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, I hope I can talk about this in terms of types of data. I mean, there is that monstrous kind of cross-region, cross-cloud efforts that we do, and that is something that is a well-oiled machine as well. But there's also, you know, the sales side of it as well. So not just the usage, but also all this customer interaction that we track, all of the things that are going on, that's also tracked as well. But it's not just on kind of like getting the product to market. It's also a lot of our internal things that we're doing as well. So people ops,
absolutely,
also on Databricks. What are the functions?
So sales. So you can think about the Salesforce. We use Salesforce internally, but we're a consumption-driven business. So we track consumption in our product, and then we share that information back to our sales reps. But not only do we do that, we do data science forecasts around our business.
Yes.
And then we share that back to our sales reps as well, so that they are not only getting backward-looking insight, they're also getting foresight into the business and where it is moving. We do things like our data science team and engineering also puts on things like Lakehouse Core, which gives us the health of the customer. We build Customer 360, which gives us complete insight into the customer as well. So there's a ton of things that we do both in sales, people ops, finance, legal, you name it, with each function we work.
So something that's very interesting, probably a challenge that maybe you can speak to. So I think you've been at the company for kind of 2 and a bit years now. Prior to that, I remember the very early days, our solution to forecasting was we'd build one and then we build another and then another and we'd just end up with so many because everyone was so enthusiastic to build a forecast, and then we'd end up with like, I don't know, 12 different forecasts, and people would be like, oh, well, I don't like that, so I'm going to build a 13th forecast, and that's going to really solve the problem. And so being CIO of a company that's so data literate must come with its own challenges. Could you talk us through some of them?
Yeah, so we had democratized data to the extreme.
Yes.
Right, so we had thousands of reports, we had thousands of tables, as I mentioned, and we had to actually wrangle the data and get canonical view of our data sources. And so that was one of the things that we did over the last 2 years, is build level 0, level 1 metrics, and now we actually announced metrics store, right? And so we had to build that internally. We had to build gold, silver, and bronze, and build a medallion architecture which was consistent. So we had to do that as well. And so as a result, we have now less sprawl, but we still have massive innovation. So I can't tell you that we are stopping the 13th forecast. I can imagine there is someone in the field is building their forecast that they want their way.
Yes, yes. But also I think, you know, in terms of willingness to try new things, that's also nice. But I imagine you, I speak to a lot of people, and they're bringing people on the data journey, and I feel like sometimes maybe people on the ground are harassing the people in the data team, saying, I want this feature, and I want it now, and I want this integration with this thing. I mean, how much do you feel that in terms of kind of the drive coming from, you know, I guess what you know as a CIO to be the best practice in the way to do things, versus things coming from the ground and saying, but I want this feature, and I know you have the data, so why can't you build it for me?
We are an engineering-driven culture.
That is a diplomatic answer. I love it.
I think what helps is for engineers is they want to understand the why.
Yes.
And so I think it's really it doesn't matter what level you are, what grade you are, what you do. I think it's really important for us to explain to them why we can't do something, and then they understand it.
Yes.
And they're fine with it. But if you don't explain it and then just say no, that doesn't work.
Yes.
I hear that.
It's very interesting. So I know that you spend a lot of time talking to kind of customers about what they're excited about. Are there any particular kind of use cases that you'd like to share with us, or kind of innovative things that people are doing with Databricks and what you've heard over the last week?
Tons of things, right?
I knew you'd have answers.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that I was talking to a Brazilian bank.
Oh, yes.
And they turned their entire business around in terms of how they shared credit cards with poor sections of the community, because they didn't have any credit history. And they gave these lower limit cards, and then they increased the limit over time. And they built a lot of that stuff on Databricks.
Oh, interesting.
I'm a big cricket fan, and I know Cricket World Cup is going on. You're a British, you know.
Yes, I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but The Office, there's always someone talking about it.
So there's a T20 World Cup going on.
Right.
So there are many Indian companies on gaming, which run on Databricks, and they, during IPL, which is the Indian Premier League, they have hundreds of millions of concurrent transactions happening on their platforms running on Databricks. So the amount of latency requirements concurrency requirements are massive. And then you have traditional companies which you would think are traditional but are really innovative, like Rolls-Royce or other companies that have built their IoT-based sensors and driving significant innovation on the way they use machine learning to drive lower maintenance costs for their engines, as an example.
Wonderful, thank you.
Wow, you know, I heard this year the US actually had a cricket team, and I have to admit, I did that. I laughed as well.
They're doing amazingly well. They won 2 games.
I'm surprised. I didn't. If you had told me that we were going to be there and be competitive at all, I wouldn't have thought it would come. But you know, maybe there's like some baseball players who have a little time, and maybe they came in through baseball first. But
a lot of expats.
That makes sense. That makes more sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
All right, so I mean, you've obviously spent a lot of the week kind of talking to other CIOs to understand what it is that you do. Is there like particular advice that you find yourself, that people need to hear kind of, a few times, or that is kind of common that you'd like to share with people?
I think one of the big things right now is Gen AI is so top of mind for most people, and yet people are struggling with making experiments into production.
Right.
And they're having a really hard time with it. And there are a whole host of reasons why that is, but often people think about all I have to do is slap a chatbot on OpenAI and it will do the trick, but it doesn't work, right? No. Because we need high level of accuracy and reliability in our data. We need it safe and governed. So I think the same software development practices that are prevalent in general software development has to be applied in Gen AI as well, and then MLOps features that we already have. We have now all the Gen AI features in MLOps where you can build end-to-end RAG applications or end-to-end agent and action applications as well. And so having that ability, just think about those. The other one is data is still messy.
Yes.
And it's becoming more messier because of unstructured and semi-structured data. So making sure that you have a good data architecture and a good process for managing data. And now you can use Lakeflow. We just announced that as well. So you can use that to ingest a lot of the data into Databricks. So and having it in one place so that you can use UC to manage their data, access their data properly, is a great best practice as well.
Wonderful. And so you spoke to a lot of CIOs, you spoke to a lot of executives. I'm not so naive as to think that everyone is completely up to speed with the entire Databricks stack. So for a lot of them, they've kind of been thrust into this position of responsibility where they're accountable for all of these fairly technical things that are quite new to them. When someone is coming to you and saying, I don't understand what all of these nerds are on about, I mean, do you have advice for CIOs to get up to speed, to understand what these things are and the context of it? And the answer is not go on a boot camp, because I feel like that's not quite the right answer for a CIO, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I like to actually I do like to go into Databricks.
Yeah, we also have, Ali Godsi as our CEO, who is also programming pretty much every single day. So I do think that might be the anomaly.
Because I think our product and platform is much easier now.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to use. And now with Lakehouse Assistant, actually if you programmed before and didn't program for a while, it helps you program much faster now. I personally believe when you do things, you get a much better appreciation for what the product does.
Yes.
But some people are readers and they want to learn theoretically, or they want to look at presentations and want to learn that way, or they want to take a class and understand just the general themes of what the product does, or they just want to understand the architecture at a 30,000 feet level. And so you have different ways of learning, I believe, and there is no one size fits all to learning. Right? People learn differently, and so I would suggest just learn, right? Just be curious. Just be curious.
Excellent. And so to what level of understanding do you think CIOs or executives should kind of be getting themselves up to? I mean, I have seen a few examples where people just kind of say, nope, I'm not going to learn any of this, and you're going to tell me all the answers and the things to do. But in terms of owning their own learning, and I know you've got the kind of Dunning-Kruger effect, but what is the kind of bare minimum that people need to understand?
I think every CEO is asking their CIO or their CTO or their CTO, what is your data and AI strategy?
Yes.
So at a minimum, you need to have an informed point of view of what your strategy is.
Yes.
And you need to establish that based on some sort of precepts that you hold dear, and that you validate those precepts. So I would say that's the bare minimum.
Okay then, wonderful, thank you.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, when you think about what you've seen at the summit this year, what do you see as being things to look out for as trends for the coming year? Things you'd be interested in, like having us sort of keep track of as far as like how we're growing as a company, what we need to be thinking about as employees. I love, for example, it was easily one of the first tasks that we had to do as a new onboarding, as a new employee, was to use Databricks itself.
Yeah.
We had to get on and use the platform itself. Do you see, for example, a path where like the faster onboarding is going to be something that we have to like give to ourselves as well as to our customers as far as how things go in the coming year?
Yeah, this has been one of the goals for us, make Databricks simple, right?
I hear that.
And you should definitely see, we are going to make big inroads into that as well, where onboarding, getting your first workloads, getting your data on, it should be a matter of few clicks. And we are definitely working really hard on that as well, right, as a company. So you can see that it's going to happen pretty soon as well.
Excellent. I know we've got some amazing features lined up later in the year to allow people to get set up really, really quickly, because
exactly.
It can be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
All right then, Naveen, thank you so much for joining us here today. It has been an absolute honor to have you here.
Yes, thank you for making the time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Lovely to have you.
Thanks, Naveen.
All right, what an absolute superstar, an absolute font of knowledge as well. But you saw her earlier, and now you get to see her again. We have with us Robin Sutara, Field CTO. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. This is my favorite thing of the whole event every year.
Fantastic.
I look forward to joining live from the Lakehouse, so thank you.
Excellent. And it's great to have you back. But you have been incredibly busy this week as well. You've been on stage, you've been chatting to loads of people. Yes. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's just been a phenomenal event. So many customers, so many conversations. Much of the discussion that I've been having with our executives and our customers are really about phenomenal platform and technology, but how do we now help them as they think about the people, the process, the governance frameworks that they need around those things, and how do they make sure that they have the right data and AI strategy to actually execute. I mean, we all love Gen AI, right? But if you can't actually use it in production, not quite as beneficial then as all those investments that you made in that platform. So
sure. And so you mentioned kind of people, process, platforms, process. No, I said process once.
Close enough.
Close enough. Maybe governance. I don't know. Let's throw that in there. I think a lot of people don't know what they don't know.
Yes. Absolutely.
So how can people kind of start to think about this?
Yeah, so I think the events like these are phenomenal, right? And just a great way to hear about the platform, the technology, all of the advancements that we're making with that. But in my experience, what I often see is organizations don't think about how do you bring people along on that journey? How do you think about things like enablement, right? We've had some phenomenal enablement. I keep saying phenomenal. Lovely, yes, lovely. We've had some lovely training. I'm going to fit in with Holly here for a second. We've had some just great training, I think, for the technical personas. How do we bring our data engineers, our data scientists, data analysts along on that journey? I think people often overlook the business. And if you think about things like Genie data rooms, if you think about sort of the capabilities that we're building into the platform and the promise that Gen AI has, we have to start thinking about how are we going to enable the technology to the business? How are we going to actually help them to be able to use it more effectively? And then that requires process, because I don't know about you, but I never keep a New Year's resolution more than like 3 weeks, right? And so how do you actually bring them along on that journey? How do you show them that if they align with the new technology and the new platform, how you can actually help them be more effective at the job, not be replaced, but be more effective, to be more deliberate in what they're doing. And then governance, we did absolutely mention. How do you make sure that you have the right frameworks? I think people get a little scared when I say I'm an IP lawyer in my past life by education. And so really, how do you think about the governance around that? And that requires not just usage and what data assets you have and how you're actually tying them together, which is what the old days were, right? I think when I first started, it was all written in a Word document in a policy. Then we threw it in SharePoint. And then nobody ever looked at it again, right? And so
I think I wrote some of those. Yeah,
I'm sure you did. I think I saw that the other day, right? And so
I remember there was a URL to click.
Oh my gosh, exactly. And then I have Government Affairs Office saying, well, we created them, people took the training, and then the very next day they violated the policy. So, right, how are we thinking about how we can help with the technology, with the platform? Then you have things like GDPR and sovereignty and all of those things that came into account with the data platform. And now AI is introducing this whole other level of, we just don't even know what we don't know. What does the EU AI Act mean in practicality? We know what it means around theory, transparency, explainability, mitigating the biases, right? But how do we make sure that the tech can support? And then how can we help you bring people and process along in that journey as well?
So you mentioned about don't write a policy document and then store it and never look at it again. In terms of other anti-patterns, I think maybe is the polite way to say it, anti-patterns that perhaps people should consider redoing. I mean, you must have come across some doozies.
Yeah, not that I'll give specific examples from my past life, right? Because I think
no names, no
names. All in full transparency and confidentiality. I think we did see a lot of setting up barriers and roadblocks. I think we all saw and recall ChatGPT first came out. Very first thing we heard was Samsung, the poor Samsung employees putting trade secrets into ChatGPT and losing the intellectual property rights, right? So immediately in Europe, we saw some countries say, that's it, no more using this technology until we can really figure out what that means. And they had the best of intentions, right? They were trying to do the right thing to innovate for the company, leverage the new tech in the right way. And so lots of organizations now are really, I think, revisiting that, setting up complete barriers and barricades to innovation via their governance policies, and how do you actually just minimize the risk. And so I love to do the comparison of, do you create a stoplight or do you create a roundabout, right? So make sure within your organization you're thinking about creating a policy that allows you to be a roundabout, that allows your organization to learn as they go through the process, and being able to leverage the technology to benefit the company and innovate on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point around not putting blockers in the way of things that you need to do, and being able to experiment but understand and do that kind of like in a safely kind of constrained way, and
Absolutely.
Picking a sensible use case to do first. Picking things that are lower risk. I think for a lot of customers we see, people start with an internal project for Gen AI.
Absolutely.
Because, if an employee is asking it very inappropriate questions and is getting inappropriate responses, it's like, well, everyone's going to go have a trip with HR. But, if this is an external project, then, it's going to get screenshotted. You're going to be on the front page of TechCrunch.
Absolutely.
Like, it's all going to go horribly wrong. So, yes.
Absolutely. I think that's a great example. I mean, most of the customers I spoke with today are still in that POC phase. They're really trying to find the right use case that they can drive value for the business and learn from it and figure out, okay, based on the learning from this use case, not just what technology do we need to think about, but what processes do we need to put in place for the organization? What enablement do we still need to bring the organization along on the journey? I mean, when ChatGPT first came out, I don't know about you, but I got a call from almost every family member about, oh my gosh, you're going to lose your job. Oh my gosh, what does this mean? Oh my goodness, how do I use it? Right? And so I literally was telling my mom, just try to do a menu plan, like just something, right, to sort of play with it and use it. But you're not going to be able to compete with Databricks. You don't have our data. You don't have our insight. So no worries, Mom. I think I'm still okay on having a career for a little while longer, while we sort of work through that.
Oh my God.
I think you're right. It's the right use case and really sort of figuring that part out.
Sorry, Mom and ChatGPT stories. Oh my goodness. I showed it to my mum. First of all, she was blown away, bless her. She's in her 70s. And she might be watching now. Hi, Mum. And yeah, we were talking about kind of just like making a poem about the local area. And then we made a gardening plan. That was really nice. And then we made some travel plans as well. That was really sweet. I don't know if you've got any family GPT family stories.
Family stories, no. And the other stories that I have are not suitable for this audience. I love you all. Thank you very much, but no. One of the things I think is really great about how you've been talking about this is the way that this is a conversation. That this is something where you're going out there and you're reaching out to these people and the business leaders and the people who are working in their business to have these conversations. We're listening as much as we're speaking. We share what we have as far as what we know, but there's also clearly an element that all of us are still learning exactly which way things need to go.
Absolutely.
All right, what are you hearing from our customer base that are new insights that maybe that we're going to be able to take into how we approach, encouraging and showing people a path for onboarding, and what are some new insights that our customers have shown us?
I think the big ask, actually, interestingly, for us, for Databricks, from our customers today, was exactly on that unlock the power of the platform for the business, right? And we're making some tracks on that, right? But not every business user is going to go into a notebook, into the Databricks sort of workspace and experience. And while we'll probably never be low code or no code, gosh, now I'm recorded saying that, I'll probably be in trouble. But right, but while we probably will never pursue that. We may not, it'll be a while before we pursue that path. I do think Gen AI and the entire infrastructure, customers are now asking us, help us unlock the power of our business. And that means our business users have to really have democratized access to data and AI. And Databricks, you're the best platform to do that. We've seen the phenomenal innovation that you guys have done to help us do that. So now how do we figure out how to train them and bring them along on that journey with us?
Fantastic. Okay. So some of that's going to actually be a little bit of a education.
Absolutely.
As well as how we make the platform itself easier to use.
And also on education as well. I mean, for me, I see two sides of it. There's one of how do you become a better employee by using Gen AI, and then there's the slightly more hardcore version of how do you start making your own stuff. I mean, in terms of that kind of delineation, where do you see a lot of the focus?
I think right now we're still so early, right? I think this year, if you think about it, this time last year, we were sort of saying prompt engineering. Everybody's going to be a prompt engineer. It's going to solve everything. In the last 4 or 5 months, we've heard RAG is going to solve everything. And then you have some people saying, no, you've got to fine tune and sort of build that up. I don't think an end user is ever going to sit there and say, oh, I really should build my own large language model to solve that finance problem that I have, right? And so I do think right now it's all about educating them on what it is, how they use it, how have you set it up within your organization, what are those controls that you want to put in place, right? Reminding them that, if you're Coca-Cola, the secret formula to Coca-Cola should not be put into, a proprietary model that's externally facing. So really, I think right now that's where a lot of customers still are when they think about, tech teams are having an amazing time, but I think truly translating that into how do we enable and empower those business users is still a journey that many of them are on.
All right then, so I'm going to ask you a question. Obviously, you're being interviewed. But in terms of your personal productivity, where have you been using Gen AI to improve what you do?
At work or home or both?
Oh, either.
Okay. So yes, I am super lazy. I am hardly home, so I'm mostly on a plane. So I have gotten to the point that I am using ChatGPT to plan my vacations, to essentially say, I have 36 hours that I am going to be in this city, and what are the best things that I can do for the cheapest amount of cost based on my central location, and it's been phenomenal. And no offense to my leadership, but I've also used it to sort of draft emails to my leadership on, nothing proprietary, nothing that shouldn't be in there, but I need to give my manager the bad news that I didn't fill out my expense report. How do I do that without, right? So.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, David.
Honestly, definitely kind of changing your tone of voice. So at Databricks, our culture is very direct. It's to the point. We just say the thing. And I'm in the process of buying a house at the moment. I had to send quite a strongly worded email. And if it was at work, I'd just be like, you didn't do the thing, Holly, send. But I had to find a way to okay, then how does the rest of the world phrase these things? How do I make it a bit nicely about it so they don't hate me?
Exactly.
Where are those diplomatic phrases I need right now?
Yeah, Databricks, we just cut straight.
If I were Holly, how would I phrase this?
Very few words. All right.
Fantastic.
That's been absolutely fantastic. So we are going to have to wrap up soon, but is there any more kind of like final stories or final thoughts that you'd like to leave people with?
I think the only other thing I would love to say is, just a big thank you to all of our customers who invested a whole week to come out here. It's just been a phenomenal experience. Also, big kudos, I actually have to say, to Databricks. We've definitely expanded some of the Women in Data events. I was really excited to see some of that, all of the participation. Customers have really seemed to get behind those events and their participation and their support, the allies, the women. So let's continue to get that diversity, because that would probably be the other thing. If I'm going to say people, process, governance, platform, I'm going to make the list even longer now, and essentially say diversity is critical, right? We know that data is biased. We know that AI models built on biased data is biased. So let's continue to drive that diversity in cultures and backgrounds and education, gender, anything that we can think of that's going to bring the best AI to the future is beneficial for all of us.
Well put.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying it.
Thank you.
No, I completely agree. I mean, even some things that are like fairly innocuous can, just kind of give an ick feeling. It's like, oh, no. Anyway, so on that, I would like to say thank you, Robin, for sharing that. I think you're the first guest that we've had today that's talked about that. So thank you for being brave and talking about that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time as always.
All right, then. What a wonderful full set of guests that we've just had today. Thank you so much. We are nearly at the end, but we'll be back after this.